Welcome to Here to Serve, a United Regional podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Graves. My favorite part of being the Director of Patient Experience at United Regional is the incredible people that I meet and work with on a daily basis, and I want you to meet them too. Join us to meet the people behind the badge and to highlight those who are here to serve. Nomi, welcome to the Here to Serve podcast. Glad to have you today.
Yes, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. Well, tell me who you are and what your role is at United Regional.
So I am the Director of Clinical Integration and Adoption, and I've worked at United Regional for over 10 years now. I started as a nurse on 9 West, and then whenever we were implementing our new EHR Epic, I joined the team first as a principal trainer, teaching the cardiology and radiology applications, and then I became an analyst after we went live, and I configured in the system in cardiology, radiology, and ambulatory, which is our outpatient application.
So I think that's one of the things that I really appreciate about you, and I think brings a lot of strength to your role, is that you, and I'm biased in this, of course, because I'm a nurse, so, but you're a nurse as your background. You said it was on 9 West?
Yes.
Yeah. What pulled you from nursing? And this is one of the things that I think is so cool about nursing, again, biased, but is there's so many facets of nursing you could go into. I started at the bedside as well. What kind of drew you and pulled you into this different world?
Oh, that's a great question. So when I was a teenager, youngin, I was always interested in computers.
Did you just say youngin?
Yeah, I said
Where are you
youngin.
from?
Here?
You're from here? Okay.
I was born in California.
Okay, that's what I had in my head. You were from somewhere else. So you were born in California, but you're from here. Okay, because youngin's a Wichita Falls term. I love it.
I've been here long enough.
Okay, long enough. Okay, continue. Sorry, that caught me off guard.
So I was always interested in computers and video games. I always had a computer in front of me growing up. And whenever I became a nurse, doing the documentation, every shift, I'm like, there's gotta be a better way. And like, I would brainstorm, if only we could do this documentation over here, it would make it more streamlined. Like I was always brainstorming on how to make the system better before I'd ever even gotten into the specifically informatics kind of realm. And whenever the Epic opportunity came up, I was still just an RN, ADN on the floor, and I'm like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to get this job. Like, I wanna get my master's in nursing informatics, but I'm just gonna throw my resume in there and see if I could get a shot. And luckily I did, and it's the best thing that's happened in my career, because I could actually do the two things I love, that clinical, how I can help not only patients, but also clinicians, but then also be able to enable the tools and make them more efficient. And because really, as a nurse, your goal is to spend the least amount of time in the system that you can.
Right.
You want your time with your patients. So any way we can make that more efficient, that's like my passion. That's what gets me really excited.
Man, I will just attest to that. I've worked with you for quite some time now in this role. And I interacted with you a little bit in the previous role. I was an advocate, I think, at the time you were at the bedside. But it comes across so clearly that your heart is to make things more efficient, especially you have a soft spot for making it better for the staff at the bedside, right? Because you lived it and you saw how maddening it can be. Like, technology is supposed to make our life easier and better, and it's supposed to help the patient. And it does a lot of those things, but sometimes it can be just maddening when you're caught in like a bunch of clicks. And so that comes across in everything that you do. I work with you in like shared governance and on some different projects, and you're very passionate about that. And it makes sense because that's what you came from.
Well, I think what makes healthcare so interesting is in every other industry, they use technology to reduce barriers and make things more streamlined. And they look at their business models and try to determine how to make it easier. Like, you could think of the banking industry where, you remember going into the bank, having to cash a check, and now everything is streamlined online. Healthcare is the one industry where we brought in technology to create almost a barrier,
It made it complex.
To streamline it. We just took our paper documentation and moved it into an EHR, and then we're like, we're all techie now. But I do think things are changing. Healthcare is becoming a lot more innovative. So how can we now, with these enhanced tools, make it to where we can make things more efficient and automated?
Well, I'm so glad we have smart people that are passionate about it. Like you, it's not my world. It scares me to death. But I have a lot of ideas where I'm like, hey, I wanted to do this. And then I call you or somebody from your team because I have no idea if that's even possible. And to your credit, you guys are always like, man, this is a cool idea. Let's figure out how to make it happen. So you're so right in that. I think no one would argue this. Even everybody in healthcare would agree. Healthcare was pretty far behind the times as far as adopting technology. We ran about, I don't know, probably 10 or more years behind the other industries, but now I think we are catching up. And much credit to our team. We've come so far in the last 10 years, and especially the last 2 or 3. It's just like leaps and bounds. We're coming a long way, and there's a lot of exciting stuff I want to get into that you guys are working on, and putting us not just catching up, but even ahead of the game. But your title, I'm gonna go back to your title. You said Director of Clinical Integration. Is that right? Those are 2 big words. Tell me what that actually means and looks like.
Oh, let me know. Help me. No.
You're still working on what it means?
I'm still working on that. But clinical integration and adoption. And I will say a lot of times my title, you can kind of fit, like everything can be an adoption issue,
Sure.
Whether the tool isn't as efficient as it could be, so people aren't adopting it as well, or it could be they're just not trained on it. They don't know how to use it as well as it could be used. It could be that it just hasn't been operationalized. Like we have the tools, we have the training out there, but staff don't really know how to integrate it into their workflows. So a lot of my role is just finding those opportunities to bridge the gap, help staff adopt those tools. And I work a lot with Kim's team and the Epic training team on training and things like that to help with that as well.
One of the things that I've always thought like really makes United Regional exceptional is, from what I've seen, the organization, the leaders in the organization tend to be very good at finding the right people and putting them in the right roles. And I think you're like a perfect example of that, of somebody like, hey, this is somebody that has the bedside experience, has this just burning desire for innovation and growth, especially as it relates to technology. Let's put them in this clinical integration and adoption role. It's just perfect, And I felt like I was a recipient of that as well. I had our roles are actually, while yours is technology, mine's more people focused. They're very similar in that director of patient experience is just one of those like kind of all in, everything is patient experience. And so you never know what that job title always means. One person told me that they thought my title was director of hot fudge sundaes instead of director, because it was like, who knows what you're going to be doing today. But I think it's a perfect fit for you, and you've been able to do some really cool stuff. So speaking of innovation, not only do you have your role as the director, but it's no surprise to me that you've been pulled in to help lead an innovation team, because that's something that you're very passionate about. Talk about the innovation a little bit.
Yeah, so we have the Spark team at United Regional, which is our innovation team, and really we're in those early stages of learning, because being innovative isn't just something you turn on. You really have to learn, and also anyone can learn to be innovative. It's not just like you have this one person that's our innovative person. Everyone has a potential to be innovative and to think creatively and think of how we could solve problems. And I'll say that clinicians are some of the most innovative people out there. When you are struggling to know how to get these lines where they need to go, you are figuring out ways, you are MacGyvering often.
That's a good verb, MacGyvering. It's true. It's so true.
So nurses are very innovative, but what we're doing with the Spark team is we're just starting to learn the basics of what it means to think creatively. How can we harness that type of culture at United Regional? How can we create opportunities for people to feel comfortable in doing innovative things, experimenting with an idea? It doesn't need to go through this huge chain of approvals. Let's see what we can do with the limited resources we have. And innovation doesn't necessarily always mean technology either. Just figuring out how you could do something better can be an innovative idea. I think a lot of people will associate innovation with AI and all these flashy new tools coming, and I do get a lot of experience with those as well. But it's a lot more than that. It's just how do we pause and think on how we could do this a little bit differently.
Yeah, I love that. I think I've historically, and I've served on the innovation team with you in years past, and I came into it kind of with this, when I heard innovation, I had these visions of, like you got to be Elon Musk or work at Google, and that's innovative. And some rando guy from Wichita Falls is not going to be innovative, was the very limited thinking on my part. And then coming in to work on that team a little bit, I was able to see it's innovation is a way of thinking. It's a process. It's, one of the things I've been interested in as it relates to innovation, I want to get your thoughts on this, is what I've seen of it is you have to have, as an organization and as a person, like a very healthy, I don't know, the word that comes to my mind would almost be ego, to go, hey, a lot of this isn't going to work, right? It's the whole point of innovation is we're thinking differently, we're doing things differently, which means we're going to throw out a bunch of ideas and we're going to have to be okay with a bunch of these going, it doesn't work. We tried it, we piloted it, but then every once in a while, you're going to land on something, but you're not going to get to that with just tying your identity to this one idea. Like, we're going to innovate with this one thing, and then this is, it's all our eggs are in this basket, and then it doesn't work, and now I've set a goal around it, and I'm falling apart, and, is that track with you? Would you challenge that?
No, absolutely. Okay. I think having the repetitive nature of this problem still exists, let's try this route and this route and this route, and you're going to have failures. And I feel like failure is such a strong word, especially when our identity is so tied to excellence. Mm-hmm. It's so easy to get clung to that, and you just think, if I mess this up, I'm not going to be excellent. When messing things up and going through issues is how you break through to that innovative idea. These super innovative companies out there, they didn't just have one idea and bang, it became successful. They went through many, many, many iterations and different things that have completely failed and died off, but the value in those things is you learn. So even if something doesn't go as successfully as you think it would, those learnings are going to help you propel yourself on your next idea. So it could be really valuable to just go through this iteration of working through these ideas, but being able to have the agility of, okay, that didn't work, let's try something else, and not just giving up. It's more important to stand back up and try again.
Keep going, not be disheartened, and then go in expecting or no. That's one of the things I learned is, like, I go in, anytime there's an idea, it's almost, I started thinking of it almost more like the scientific method of, let's try to disprove that this works, let's like, this is not going to work, let's try it. And then, oh my gosh, people love this was great, or you just never know, but.
And then on the flip side, saying, oh, this is a problem, this absolutely is a problem, and then actually testing it out and realize, oh, that's actually not the problem. It's this other thing over here that's causing it. So sometimes you will run with this idea only to find out it didn't actually make a significant difference. But then if you go back the steps, you realize it's because you just jumped on the idea, not what the underlying problem is that you're trying to solve with it.
Well, I think there's so much you just learn by doing. Like, you just get out there and it's messy. There's no clean growth. There's no clean innovation. It's always going to be messy in my experience. And there's no, one of our organizational values we talk about recently quite a bit, it is growth. And I would argue, like, there's no growth without innovation. You got, and it's going to be messy.
And there's no growth without discomfort. If you're comfortable, you're not growing. So you have to go through those things, learn those things, and then just being able to get back up and try something different. And,
well, I've been very appreciative. It seems, in my experience with our leadership, has been supportive of, actually Corey actually said something to me recently. I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, I know what it was. It was, we were looking at starting the honor walk and are kind of getting the honor walk for veterans and for organ donors, things like that going. And he asked, do you guys do an honor walk? And we said, no, well, we have some version of it, but we want to expand it. And he goes, go do it. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, look, I need to go, like, bring a process, get approval, go through the system. And he goes, no, we'll figure it out. Just go start it. And that's, I was like, I love that. That's innovation. You're speaking my language. Let's just go. And we did. We started it. We learned on our first one, we learned so many things. It went great. It was beautiful. It was meaningful. It wasn't perfect. We learned a lot. On the second one, we learned even more, and the process started to come together. So I think there's so much to be said for just getting out there and being courageous.
You can make a lot of headway just jumping in there. Even if you don't know all the answers, just jump in and then figure it out as you go. Now, there are some things in our industry you can't necessarily jump into
Of
that.
course, we're not going to be unsafe,
Yeah.
right? We won't do anything that's unsafe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think safety comes first, but
Yeah.
as long as you're maintaining that, really the sky's the limit of what you could try. And it doesn't have to be the fully fledged out idea. It could just be like, let's try this one little thing and see and test it out and see if that gets us closer, and then stack on and on and on.
No doubt.
Yeah.
I remember specifically one of the projects, and I don't even remember what the project was. I just remember we were working on an idea, and me and another member of the team were challenged to go talk to patients in waiting rooms because we thought this was a major problem. And when we went and talked to patients, I couldn't find one patient that felt like it was a problem. It was a problem to us. But the patients were like, nah, it doesn't really bother me. And so we would have spent, if we hadn't done that, we would have spent all this time, going down this path of trying to solve a problem that wasn't really that big of a problem.
Absolutely.
So
Or
that's
like
awesome.
purchase a big IT solution.
Yeah.
And I love all the tools, all the tech, but if it really doesn't solve the underlying problem, really what it does is it change manages people out. Like it changes out people where, hey, let's implement this new tool, and then it really didn't solve the issue. Well, let's stack on this other tool. And so as part of my role, it's not just about like, how can we bring in more tools to make things easier? It's just how can we be more intentional about the tools we bring in, and are they going to solve that underlying problem?
Yeah, there are a couple things kind of on mind with that is you want to do work that matters. Nobody, in my experience, most people don't mind and actually enjoy working hard. What they don't like is working hard on something that doesn't matter, doesn't produce fruit. And so it's like innovation is though, let's find the work that matters, and do good work. I love that. Well, what are you excited about right now as it relates to anything, innovation, technology? Like what's got you fired up?
I'm really fired up about AI right now. I know we were just talking about, not everything's a technology tool, but I just feel like this is another thing that we could leverage that could be so helpful and free people up to do the work that matters versus the administrative burden on the outside. So one way that we've started down this track is implementing ambient listening technology in our primary care space. We've implemented a tool called Nuanced Stacks Copilot, and it's been really helpful for our providers. And basically what it does is whenever the provider's in the room with the patient for their visit, they get the consent from the patient, are you okay with this being recorded? It's just gonna help me with my documentation. After they get that consent, they start this recorder from their phone. They have the conversation with the patient, they discuss treatment options, all of that. And then when the provider goes to do their note, it's summarized everything with just the relevant information that they need for their documentation, and really they just need to review it and tweak it. So it's been very helpful from a mental burden perspective of just get all that out there. It's also caught some things that they may have forgotten whenever they're going and doing the note. So it's just been very helpful, a very beneficial tool for our providers. I'm very excited for this technology to grow and expand into other areas such as nursing.
Well, this is one where, and you've heard me use my term here, the phygital term, which means combining the physical and the digital. This is one that really sparks my interest here from a patient experience standpoint. Because I've spent a lot of time in the past training providers how to, like they have to use the computer in the room to document, but they need to talk to the patient. And so one of the best practices has always been you talk to the patient fully, you tell them what you're going to do, you turn to the computer, you do your computer work, you talk them through what's happening, but you do your work and then you come back to the patient. You don't try to do both. Like that's kind of how we've always talked about it, because if I'm doing both, I'm not giving either of them my full attention and the patients feel uncomfortable with that. Well, this is one of those where I love it from an experience standpoint, because not to say they're never going to have to get on the computer, but it's going to reduce the amount of mental energy they're putting into the documentation, that mental energy can now go to the patient, eye contact, all the nonverbals, kind of the knee-to-knee stuff that I want them to be focusing on. This frees people up to do that, and that's very exciting to me.
And I want to stack on that. It's not even just that aspect. It's also, if you want this technology to be effective, the more you say, the better it is.
Wow.
So whenever you're doing your assessment, if you're saying to the patient, okay, your heart sounds sound normal, your lung sounds sound normal, you're using it to help you with your note, because in the past, usually you're mentally noting it all. and you're saying, okay, I'm going to save this for when I do my documentation. But with the ambient listening, it works best when you say it out loud because it will put in the notes.
Right.
So then you are opening up more opportunities of communication with that patient so they could ask questions about their assessment and all that.
Man.
So.
I love that. That's a beautiful thing. And funny, I pretty much have AI already doing that for me in life in general. Not all the time, but in meetings, I have found that I will just have I'll do some kind of voice memo on my phone and then drop it into one of some variation of AI that will then summarize it all for me, and it just completely frees me up to focus in the meeting. I'm not worried about scratching notes and trying to keep up. I'm like, where was this when I was in school? It would have been amazing. But I use it for that purpose, and it frees me up just in everyday life. So I'm just loving that this is something that's happening at the bedside.
Yes, it's going to be great for clinicians, but like you were saying, the administrative and operational side, we're using a lot of AI in the revenue cycle space. There's so much administrative work there that if we could free our people up to focus on the more higher value items versus, getting strung up time and spending a lot of time on these things that could just be processed by an AI solution. It's very, very interesting and a very exciting time as well.
Sure, I agree. And just again, personal, I forget. I'm slowly training myself to use it more because it is one of those things that can save a lot of busy work. And I'm not great with spreadsheets. I was working on some of the spreadsheet the other day, and I'd been fiddling with it for quite some time. And I thought, you know what? I bet Copilot could do this for me. And I dropped it in Copilot, and it did it just like that. I mean, it did it well. I double checked everything, and I was just so impressed. Like, man, that saved me a lot of time, and I'm sure there's a lot of waste in my life on things like that. So, but let me talk about the flip side of that. I'm gonna get your idea. AI is one of those things that's very exciting, but also I think there's some fear associated with AI, and maybe some of it valid and some of it not. What do you think about the downsides, the things that people worry about with AI, and then maybe even a little bit about, I know we have an entire governance structure around, some guardrails with AI. You talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so we want to be very cautious in how we use AI, and there's some risks associated. There could be some biases that can present themselves in the data, but one way that we kind of approach this is we want to partner with AI vendors that are leading in the space and have already worked through other organizations, kind of showed their value. So we're not necessarily right on the front line experimenting a new algorithm. We're able to see this is a tool that's been trusted by the healthcare industry. Let's work on adopting it. So I think that's one way that we help to reduce that risk. Another kind of counter argument that I would say is a lot of the risks that we're worried about with AI, like blind reliance, which is where, you were talking about how you reviewed what the AI came out with and then made sure it looked okay. Once you trust it so much after a certain point, what if you just take it blindly and sign off on it? And in the clinical space, you've got provider notes being drafted up, just blindly signing off those notes. So my counter argument to that is that's not necessarily a new risk. We still have that risk today where you Google something, copy and paste it, or you copy forward a note and you don't review it in detail and you may sign it. So there are some risks that already are presenting themselves. It's just AI is going to enable those even more. So how are we educating our staff to make sure that they understand AI is going to have inaccuracies? It's going to give you information that can change over time. So you just have to be very cognizant of that. And look at AI as a creative partner, not a replacement. It's really just to help you get started or help free up your time. It's not meant to just completely automate your thought processes. We need clinicians using critical thinking in their work. And AI is not going to be able to do that for all the nuance that happens in healthcare.
Sure. Yeah, one of the things that's really surprised me about AI, genuinely surprised me, is its ability to empathize. And I thought maybe it was in my role, I teach empathy a lot. Like that's one of the biggest skills I think healthcare staff need to understand. First of all, what it even means. Maybe we should do a podcast about that at some point. But what does empathy even mean? It's very misunderstood. And then how do I not only empathize, but then enunciate that empathy back to the person? And I've challenged, different AI software a few times to like, I've dropped a document in there and said, add empathy to this. And it actually did a really good job, surprisingly, almost like disconcertingly good job of empathy. And I heard a AI expert, a AI healthcare expert recently speak on this at a conference. And I thought it was just something I had noticed, but they actually said they have seen that AI excels at voicing empathy. And that providers that are starting to use that are seeing the benefits with their patients. And so I've started asking around a little bit, and I've heard multiple patients say, I can tell when, because I've known my doctor for 15 years, and then when he uses, AI, it's like, hey, he's not that empathetic, but I like it. I can tell he's getting some help. Have you seen that? Is that coming across?
Yes, and I've heard the same messaging from other organizations that have found that responses that come from AI are more empathetic. So for example, when you're chat messaging on my chart to your provider, we have this tool called In-Basket Art, augmented response technology that can draft a response back to the patient that we have utilized. And I think when you're thinking of empathy, and especially in messages, that's the first thing to go when you're on a time crunch. When you just need to help the patient with their thing that they're asking for. And sometimes empathy, those are just extra words I don't have time to type, or I don't have time to just go through. But AI's got the time, and it could do it real quick to be able to give you those. So yeah, I've seen the same thing where AI responses have provided more empathy because it drafts it out for you, and you can review it and make sure, that looks great.
It's such an interesting dichotomy. It's fascinating. We live in fascinating times, because you would think, well, this is an algorithm. The human is going to be the more, now the AI doesn't feel empathy, right? I think that's very important. It doesn't feel empathy, but it can relay. Give you the words, it can relay it. So something I worry, I struggle, and I try to be careful in my own personal life. And you said this earlier, is to not allow, AI can't do critical thinking for you, right? And so to use it to augment ideas, but not to be creative for me, but to take creativity and help me expound on that creativity. I don't want AI to make me lazy, so to speak. But I've heard this quote multiple times from multiple sources, and we'll wrap up with this. I want to see what you think about this quote. And it's kind of almost become kind of like doctrine a little bit now, I think, amongst these spaces. But what I've heard for a couple of years now is, AI is not going to replace leaders, but leaders who use AI will probably replace leaders who don't. And it makes me wonder, like, okay, that applies to maybe providers and nursing and healthcare organizations. AI is never going to replace the human in healthcare. But humans that use it are going to be able to go a lot further. Do you think that's factual?
Well, like we talked about with augmentation, it's augmenting people. So if you're not taking advantage of that augment, you're kind of going to be left behind by those that do, unfortunately. And really, we're in this growth mode, right? And there's going to be a lot happening in our organization. So what are the things that I have been doing the last few years that really, now that AI is a thing, and it's more popularized, there's the generative AI that can help. How can I rethink the way I work to free myself up from this administrative mess, so then I can take on that growth or the changes
do
coming.
The meaningful things that I want to
do.
Do
the meaningful things, for sure.
I love it. I one of my responses for folks and I've had this conversation a lot, I think most humans are right now having these conversations, because it's such a new thing. But I'll say, well, I'm staying away from AI, and my answer is like, no, you're not. And they're like, yes, I am. I'm like, no, it's already integrated into your life in so many ways that you just don't realize it's AI. But it's pretty much everywhere, pervasive at this point. And so in my mind, and I'm not saying this is how everybody should feel about it, but in my mind, if this thing's already a part of my life, I need to understand it, know how to use it, know as much about it as I can. And
I feel like people were hesitant when the internet came.
For sure.
Around. And this is just the next phase of that. It's just another expansion on the technology. And I agree with you. It's going to be part of your life, whether
you want it or not.
Yeah, you want it
here.
or not. It's going to come.
Here.
Yeah, and it's going to help you out. It will.
I mean, the more I use it, the more I'm blown away by what it can do and how much time it can save me. Give me time back, to do the things at work that matter. Give me time back with my family. Like, that's what I appreciate about it, is it's able to save me just some tremendous amount of busy work that it can just shoot, be like, and hey, we use it for cooking at my house a lot these days. You know, you can give it some ingredients. And what's your favorite? I know we got to wrap up. What's your favorite like non-work like hack that you use AI for?
So my favorite thing that I like to use it for is vacation planning.
Oh,
So
I haven't done that.
instead of Googling all the different things and going through all of it, ask AI to do the research for you. What are the best flights? What are the best things to see? What are the best restaurants? I want you to go and surf web pages and dig and find for me the perfect vacation. So I think it's really helpful for
that kind of
that.
stuff. Yeah. So, again, that would save a lot of time if you're doing just the Google search and clicking through, and you got to look at 15, 20 different sites, and just click of the button, it does all that for you.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, Nomi, it's been really cool to get to talk to you. We could talk for another hour easily. Anything that I haven't asked you that you really wanted to, was on your heart that you wanted to get out today?
I think I would just say that there's a lot coming from technology. So just learning how we can encourage other people in our organization to be open to it and experiment, try it out, see what works, see what doesn't work, and really try to just help your peers around you see the advantage of these tools, I think is a great thing. So if we could just spread the word, get more exposure out there, I think a lot of people will get excited and start using these kinds of things.
I love it. Nomi, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for joining us today. Appreciate what you do.